Hey, hey, besties and bosses, happy Tuesday. How are you all doing? How's everyone's week going? It is a beautiful day here in Brooklyn and it is just lovely and I cannot wait to chat with you all today. We're going to talk about business investments. We're going to have some very real talk. I've got a lot I want to share with you today and dive into, particularly to support you in understanding, yes, the concept of investing in your business, but also how to make better investments in your business for a bigger ROI. I think there's some concepts I've learned over the past 6 years that are really beneficial, really supportive for making those decisions. And I think this is great for you, whether you're looking to make an investment or you're supporting your clients through making that investment. There's a couple concepts here that I think can be really beneficial. Ooh, and I've got something, I know this freaks out my husband when I do it. There's something in my eye. So excuse me there for a moment. Before we dive in, we had a giveaway every week, except for last week when we had Katrina on, which was super fun. And it was so fun to see so many of you live with us. But we do a giveaway each week on our live streams. So thank you for being here, because I know there's lots of places you could hang out. So this week we are giving away one copy of my self-study course. It's a 6-week sales course called Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout. It walks you through the art and strategy of selling more without the ick. It is really great. I've had lots of clients use that before hiring me to create their sales process to be able to sell more, make more money. And it's also something I give to my one-on-one clients to supplement the work we do together. So all you have to do is say hi. Whether you're watching now or on the replay, we'll pick a winner on Thursday and we will DM you if you win. So just say hi, leave an emoji. If you don't want it, you can pass it on to someone else. There's no obligation to take it if you don't want it. Any other announcements? Oh, we have a free podcast series running right now, the Too Much series, Make Too Much Noise, Money and Impact on Your Terms. This was a 5-day podcast series we ran last year. We've turned it into an evergreen series for you. There's a bonus playbook with some journaling prompts and affirmations for you. I will link to it below. I forget the actual URL and I don't want to tell you the wrong URL for that, but it's completely free. You'll get instant access. It's 5 days of podcast episodes with those questions for you. And it's really powerful. It's going to walk you through the clarity, mindset, strategy, and action of making too much noise, impact, and money. Okay, so those are all the announcements. Now let's dive into today's topic. So business investments. So I think just to preface this, I think you and I are probably all on the same page. I think we all understand the concept that in order to create any kind of resource result in business, we have to invest something upfront, right? Whether that's time or a resource or energy, we have to invest something, money, something to create a resource. With the example I shared in the email I sent out, my husband's a big board game geek, and I mean that in the best way possible. We have something like 250 board games, y'all, and that's in our Brooklyn apartment. We have to have like separate closet space for them, and he sells a lot of them. It's kind of ridiculous. I've played probably over 120 at this point. Anyway, what I've learned with these games, they're very strategy based, so my strategy brain loves that. And part of this mimics business. Obviously, our businesses are not a game, but the way you win a board game, part of what you do is you start to create an engine, the same way we do in business, right? We create a marketing and sales engine. You create an engine, and usually creating this engine, what you're doing in the game is you are allocating resources, right? You might allocate some coal and some wood in a board game. You have to allocate those resources, build an engine that generates resources, and then you use those resources and invest them in something else to get points or gold or whatever the thing is that's going to help you win the game. And it's kind of like the better the engine you build and the more you're willing to invest from your engine and leverage that, the more points you get in a game. Usually that's how you win in a game. So I'm really good at board games. Hey Laura, nice to have you on. Anyway, so this is board games, but I think the same concept is true for us in business, right? We have to create an engine, create some resources, and invest them to be able to generate more resources in our business. So that's kind of the premise for just like baseline, just so we're all on the same page. And I think in business, it's not a board game, right? We're not playing with fake money. We're not playing with fake coal and wood and gold coins. We're talking about real money, real time, real energy, really valuable resources. And, we're talking about the assets, our business engine, and the assets on the other side. And so I think it can be a little bit more confusing. So what I want to dive into today is if we're all on the same page that yes, we have to invest something to create resources or results in business. We all want to create results in business, right? Everyone here wants to make more money on their terms. I know that. You want to build, grow, and scale a profitable business. Absolutely. What I want to talk about today is having some just real conversation about how to make better investments in your business so that you get a bigger ROI. I'm going to break down, let me just actually pull up my notes here. Oh, my team's in my document as well. That's funny. Hi to my team. We're going to dive into a well-intended marketing narrative, something I hear in the online space a lot when it comes to making investments in your business that I think can actually do more harm than good sometimes and leave us confused. And we're going to break that down a little bit. We're going to talk about the truth no one wants to tell you about getting the most from your investment and that bigger ROI. I'm going to tell you because I'm in a beautiful place in business where I'm fully booked, right? I don't even really we have spots opening up in the future, so definitely book a call if you want to, but it's not like I have a lot to sell you, so I feel very free just being able to share these things. So I'm going to share the truth with you about getting that bigger ROI from your investments. We're going to dive into how to trust yourself and get more from your investments. It's just super simple, but I think this is something we forget, and it's a way to take your power back in your business. And then we'll close with 4 questions you can ask yourself before making any investment in your business, so you can get really clear on if this is the right investment for you and how to get the most out of it, how to be able to make that decision. Because we might be on the same page that you got to invest to make money, whether that is time or energy or money to be able to create those results in your business. But that doesn't mean that doesn't kick up some dirt for all of us, no matter what stage we're at in business, no matter how many resources you have. Even if you have all the time in the world, right? It can still be scary to invest that time in your business. Or if you have all the money in the world, it can still be scary to make that investment in your business. So we're gonna go through those 4 questions and share those with you. And if you have questions along the way, throw them at me. And again, if you say hi, leave an emoji and anything like that, you will be entered to win a free copy of my 6-week sales course, Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout. Okay. Whew, I got a lot to say today. So hopefully we will get this all in an hour because I got a client call after this. But if not, we'll do a part 2. So let's talk first about the really well-intended narrative, marketing narrative I see come up a lot in our space and how to unpack that a little bit, because I think sometimes it can do a little more harm than good and cause some of us to get in our own head and stall and kind of hit the brakes when it comes to taking that next step to invest in business. And I'm going to give you a really simple question, a really simple way to reframe this and to think about this differently. So what I see happen, and again, I think most of the marketing we see online is really well intended. I always say marketing is really powerful. As Emily Hirsch says, all marketing works. It's just a matter of when. And with that, we have great responsibility as business owners, as marketers, and responsibility to come from a place of integrity. And I do sincerely believe that most of the people we see in our online space, especially in this group and in the groups we're all a part of, the spaces we're all a part of, I really do believe most marketers are really coming from a good place and from a place of integrity. And I say that because that is, I think, that's not the well-intended story, but I think that's something we almost forget. It's like we have 1 or 2 people who maybe aren't coming from integrity, and that can kind of spoil the whole pot. But I really do think for the most part, people are coming from integrity and are really well-intended. And that has been my experience in business. So maybe it's also the mindset and then you get that showing up, but to reflect that here. And I think most people's marketing, even if it is maybe not landing in a way that's helpful, is coming from a good place. And one of the things I'm seeing quite a bit and that I think sometimes gets taught is through marketing to throw kind of shade on other people's businesses and to kind of say, hey, you've had shitty investments in the past. None of your other investments have worked. Every other program you've done hasn't worked for you. And here's why you should invest in my program. It's not how anyone would actually market, but it's kind of this marketing that throws shade. Is that even a term people say anymore, y'all? But that kind of disses other programs. And I think the intention there is less to do harm or to say something bad about another program, but more to say, hey, if you've ever had a bad experience, that's normal, and my program isn't like that, right? I think we've all seen that in our online space. And I think, again, it comes from a well-intended place. I think it really is to create some safety and trust with the program someone is selling that they really believe in, saying like, hey, if you've ever had a bad experience, that's fine, and here's why this is a great experience. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes what that does is it starts for all of us as business owners, it starts to create this narrative that we don't have power, we don't have responsibility when it comes to investing. And it's sort of like, we just kind of like have to cross our fingers and hope that the person we're investing in, like almost like all the power gets given to who you're investing in or through, or the program or the course or the tool, whatever that might be. And that if it's bad, like it's not your fault. But the challenge when we say something isn't and it's no one's fault, but when we say something else is bad and you had nothing to do with it, we unintentionally strip away personal responsibility. And I think unintentionally then on the client, on all of our sides, as we're coming to the place as an investor, it can leave us feeling very much like, well, I have to pick the perfect best investment that's not going to screw me over, because if I've ever had a bad experience, it's sort of like out of my power, right? I have no power in this. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a victim mentality, but it's a little bit of that, like, I just have no power or responsibility. So there's a lot of then pressure that unintentionally gets put on the person making an investment. And I think this is helpful for us to know, again, both on the investor side and on the service provider side. Let me know if this is making sense and if you have any questions around what I'm saying. So again, well-intended. I think this comes from I tell my clients all the time, right? Let's make sure we're overcoming objections in content. Let's make sure we're speaking to these things. So I don't think any of this comes from a negative place, but I do think unintentionally sometimes, again, this strips away the power for all of us investing. And one of the biggest things all of us can do when it comes to looking at investments in our business, and this is kind of like the real talk part I wanted to have, where you can get your trust back with investments, where you can get the biggest ROI from an investment, is to start to take your power back, to start to take your trust back, to stop outsourcing power, and to start to see, I am always at choice. I make smart investments, and even if I make an investment where maybe it's not the best investment, or it wasn't the best program, or I didn't get exactly what I wanted, I always make the most out of my investments, and I'm the one at choice. Not to make yourself wrong, not to give yourself a hard time, not to like, oh my gosh, I made an investment in the past that didn't turn out the way I wanted, and now it's my fault, and I have to take all the responsibility and blame, and that there aren't two people in that equation, and I need to feel horrible about it. But to take back some of your power and your trust to see, but I can trust myself, right? And to start to take that back, that is something. I invest in the stock market, right? There are investments I make in the stock market that maybe, especially right now, don't look the way I want them to. And I could say, well, that's a shitty investment I made. And like, oh my gosh, like I just have to make sure I find the perfect right investment, that there's no risk, that it never like ebbs and flows. Otherwise it's a shitty investment. And almost like put all the power onto the stock market. Or I can say, I trust myself, right? I have 100% choice as much as there's 100% choice and responsibility on the other side. Like I can get back into my power and choice. And that's going to have me feel much safer and step into my trust to be able to make investments, which ultimately is going to allow me to make a better ROI. Because as soon as I'm back in my own personal power and trust, we use the stock market as an example, I'm also not like worried so much that everything is out of my control. And so as soon as there's a dip, say in the stock market, like taking all my money back because I think there's something bad happening, it's more like, oh, well, I trust myself here. I trust myself to make good investments. Let me make sure I work this the way I need to. Right? I can have a little bit more ease and safety there. Hopefully that makes sense for you with the stock market. I'm a bit of a geek around that stuff, but I think that's something that is, again, well-intended, but unintentionally on the investing side can have you feeling like you've done something wrong. And I think I've got a lot I'm going to share today in terms of like practical questions, but one of the biggest things I would invite everyone here, like just the real talk about investing in your business or investing in resources in a board game, is to see, where am I outsourcing my power? Where have I outsourced my power in the past? Where have I outsourced my personal responsibility? And that does not mean that the person you're investing through, the thing you're investing in, that there is not also a responsibility for someone to deliver what they're promising or what they say they will. That is not what I'm talking about at all. We're talking about people who are in integrity on the other side and selling, programs and services, doing what they say they will, right? How can you also build that self-trust with yourself and stop looking for like it's a right or wrong, black or white situation? Because I think that's where we get ourselves in trouble, right? Where it's almost like everything I did in the past was wrong, this has to be right so I can trust myself. Or everything I did in the past was wrong, therefore I can't trust myself. That's where we get a lot of pressure. Stock market example, my first stock, the first thing I ever invested in, y'all, this is actually really funny. The first time I dabbled in, now I've learned a lot more. I didn't know anything about investing, and I don't know why, but I've invested, my first investment was outside of like retirement and stuff, was in, what's it called? Like a marijuana company. And it went bust literally like right away. I freaked out and I took my money out. Right? I could say that was a bad investment. That was wrong. That was bad. I can't trust myself. I need to make sure that never ever happens again. And that was all that, it's all the stock market's fault. It's all that horrible company's fault. And unless I find something perfect, I'm never doing that again. Or I could say, oh, well, I made a choice. I learned a lot, right? Like I could take back some of my power there and see like, also, maybe if I had like trusted myself a little bit more and rode the wave of that, I could have recouped some of my money instead of just taking it right out, right? I could mine it for the lessons that are there and take some of my power back. Belinda says, I totally think trusting ourselves is an incredibly important practice. Amen. I think it's kind of, I mean, I know you're with me on this. I feel like it's like the whole name of the game, and we will talk about that more because I think that's actually how you get the biggest ROI out of anything. So thank you for chiming in there. So I think where we can see this here is if you've ever had a bad investment in the past, right? If some of this narrative is people are speaking to that in their marketing and maybe that's triggering, I think instead of looking at like, oh my gosh, now I can't trust anyone, now I need to like find the most perfect investment ever. I think the place where we can take some of our self-trust and power back, if I use that stock example as an stock exchange, no, the investment as an example, what I always think can be helpful is to look at how can I look at every single investment gives me an ROI. It might not be the ROI I expected, but I always get a return on my investment. And how can I start to cultivate that mindset? And if I'm not getting the investment I expected, how can I really take back my power and look for what is the return I got here? So again, I can build my trust and I can start to learn what I need to learn or what I need to know for my next investment. That stock example, right? I didn't get the return I expected. The return I expected was I was just going to be like a genius with investing in the stock market, invest $100, and I don't know what I thought it was going to be like, turn into $1,000 overnight, whatever silly thought I might have had, right? So I didn't get the return I expected, but the return I did get on that investment was honestly probably far more than any return I could have gotten monetarily, because I learned so much about investing. I had to like stop and learn so much about the stock market. I had to learn so much in that process. That return on that investment far outweighs the return I thought I was going to get. It might not have been what I expected, but if I can start to see that, I can then start to take my power back, right? Take my personal responsibility back. I'm no longer a victim to that investment, and I can start to stack my trust up and see, well, the truth is no matter what investment I make, I always get a return. And when you have that mindset, that makes you feel so much, what's the proper grammar here? So much safer in your business. And that's what makes you feel unstoppable. And that's how you actually get a bigger ROI, because when you have that mindset, then you're not going into your next investment, outsourcing your power, hoping someone else will give you a return, as opposed to knowing I always get a return no matter what. That is the mindset. I make sure of that, even if it's not what I expected going in. Even if there is a, maybe it's not the like quality product I expected, because I think we've all probably been in that situation before. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next thing because I'm gonna ramble on that, and I got a lot I wanna say here. The second piece with that I think is really helpful to remember when we're thinking about like, oh, I made wrong investments in the past, and kind of that narrative where it's almost like throwing shade on other investments, either seeing that through marketing or wanting to do that ourselves, we're kind of the trust is getting dispersed. If we're going to take trust back, one of the things I find really helpful, and this is one of the 4 questions I'll share with you at the end, is starting to understand, like this is one of the places where you can start to know I always get a return for my investment and take some of your power back. Starting to understand, instead I invest to get a return, starting to understand what is the next right problem for me to solve in my business. Shout out to my coach, Lacey Sykes. She talks a lot about solving the right problem in your business. I think when it comes to investing in your business, we want to get clear on what's the next right problem to solve in your business that you want to invest in. So kind of borrowing from that idea. What I find happens so often for us in the online space is there's really great marketing out there that is telling you you have a problem, telling you you need to solve that, that is giving you a really great solution. And it's not necessarily that last investment you made was wrong or bad or didn't deliver the way it was supposed to. So often when we look back at past investments that maybe didn't give us the return we expected, so often what's happening is we've just simply invested in solving I don't want to say wrong because that's maybe not the healthiest way to think about it, but not solving the right next problem in our business. And instead, we've just invested in solving a problem that exists and kind of gotten lost in that shiny object syndrome. I will actually give one example on this because I think it's helpful for context. And I think this is helpful for everyone when you're thinking about making that next investment, or if you're on the selling side, to think about how can you be in integrity when you're selling. I had a discovery call with someone this morning, a wonderful human being who I refused to sell to because as we were talking, two things happened. One, as we were speaking, it was really clear that he had just made a large investment in his business that he had been sold to, frankly, I think not from a place, company, not from a place of integrity, that wasn't the right problem for him to solve in his business. He had a lead generation, a marketing problem, so to say, right? The next thing for him to solve was really creating leads in his business. And he had been sold a very expensive, pricey, complicated lead generation management software, what you do after you have all of the leads, which was sitting there empty because that wasn't the next problem in his business that needed to be solved. And so we were talking about this, and this is what I mean here, where it's like that actual software, that actual tool, nothing wrong with it. It is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. I'm sure it works really well. I'm sure it is amazing. And this wasn't the vehicle that was going to solve the actual problem in his business at this time. I do question the integrity in the way that I heard it was sold to him, but that's a whole different story. But that's kind of understanding what's the next problem, right problem to solve that you want to invest in. And we were talking about his business is not in my zone of genius. It's out of my industry in terms of kind of some of the scope of his work. But that was like the crux of the next right thing to invest in. And really for him, it was some team support. And I present this here, I share this here because it's really easy to see a shiny product or a shiny tool or shiny solution, and there's nothing wrong with it. And to invest in that and to think this is going to solve all of my problems in business, when the truth is it's only going to solve the problem it's designed to solve, and that might not be the problem you have in your business. And what happens when we get stuck in this kind of like shiny object investing syndrome, not only is that expensive and not only is that frustrating because it's not solving what actually needs to be solved, but I think this is then when we end up with the narrative we were talking about at the beginning of this live stream where we're throwing shade. It'd be easy for me to throw shade and to throw names on what this program is and say, that's a horrible program. Anyone who invests in that, like, I know if you've ever invested in that, you shouldn't, and you should invest with me instead, when the truth is I think it's really great software, quite honestly. It just wasn't the software this person needed at this stage in their business. Belinda says, oh my God, if you don't trust yourself, you'll end up with a truckload of unneeded classes and tips and tricks. I call it biz porn. It can be expensive and unhelpful. Oh, and Belinda said, I totally think that was the comment from before. Biz porn is amazing, Belinda. It is total biz porn. Side note, the first year in business, I went to a big conference out in California, and I met someone who warned me. I luckily don't get caught up in biz porn, but basically warned me to leave my credit card at home because they said they had gone the year before and I think spent over $100K in basically what you're talking about, biz porn in the classes. It's so easy to do. And I think to what Belinda's saying is I think this is a perfect way to put a bow on what we're talking about here. This doesn't mean the biz porn, the classes, the tips and tricks, the courses, the software. It doesn't mean that any of those are wrong or bad or not good investments. They're simply not great investments if they're not solving the current problem any of us have in business. If I have I need team to support me because I don't have enough hours in my business problem, which was more what was coming up for the person I was speaking to this morning, right? I think I'm an excellent coach. My clients get amazing results. I'm great at marketing. I'm great at sales. I'm great at the mindset. I still was not going to be the right investment for this client at this time, even though I think I could support him, right? But his problem was really needing more hours in the day to solve a front-end lead generation problem. Not that I can get in there and help, but just to give context here, right? If if my challenge is mindset, right, and I buy 15 courses on how to sell and how to market on Pinterest, those programs are probably really great if the problem in my business was how to sell on Pinterest, except for if my challenge is mindset, kind of isn't solving the problem here. So I offer this here just so everyone can keep this in mind. So you're not making yourself wrong for those investments, but you can also give yourself some grace because we're talking about the self-trust piece, it's easy if you've ever made an investment like that to think, well, I can't trust myself to invest because I invested in that Pinterest course. It sucked. It didn't work. I can't trust programs because I didn't get the results I wanted. When maybe it's simply, it's a great program and you just got a result that wasn't intended, but you still got a result, which is now you know that's probably not the problem to solve in your business and you have more clarity on what the right problem to solve is. Okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox because I got other stuff I want to share. So the next thing, real talk about investments in your business. This is the real truth that, aside from what I just shared, that I think not a lot of people want to share in the online space. I think we're probably in circles where more people will share this, but I'm just gonna be like, this is a good news, bad news in terms of getting the biggest ROI from your investments. It's kind of a cheap piece to this. One, results take time. And I think that is something that marketing doesn't want to tell you, and that is something our brain doesn't want to hear. In fact, I think our brain fucking hates that because we all want instant gratification. We all want a microwave success. We all want, the Amazon Prime of results in our business. This does not mean results can't happen quickly. This does not mean your business can't blow up like beyond what you've ever seen. I have clients who, honestly, they grow faster than me, and I'm blown by how quickly they grow and scale their businesses. That's not what I'm talking about. Even for my clients who seem to blow up overnight and have really super fast results, right? They get booked out in 3 months. They're hitting 6 figures in 3 to 6 months. Even for those clients, those results still take time. And that is something that I think is so important to understand with making an investment in your business, because I think one of the mindsets that screws us, it screws our self-trust when we're making an investment, is when we forget that results take time. Even if I say this all the time, even if I want to go microwave a dinner tonight, I still got to go get that microwavable meal from the store, or have Amazon Whole Foods deliver it to me. And I still got to poke the holes in the top of the plastic, stick it in the microwave, and set that timer for 5 minutes or however long it takes to cook, right? Even that instant dinner is going to take some time to give me the results of a hot microwavable meal. I have not had a microwavable meal in a very long time, but you get what I'm saying. The same is true for us in business. And again, this does not mean it has to take a long time. Things can happen quickly. And we all want to play the long game and the long term. But when it comes to investing, I think this is really important to remember, because I think where we sometimes unintentionally give our power away and lose our self-trust is when we get stuck in our instant gratification, which, all of us as humans want instant gratification. That is how we are wired. There's a bunch of studies on this, right? Delayed gratification for most of us, especially as entrepreneurs and as creatives and as artists, right? It's usually not the thing where it's like, yes, I am just awesome at delayed gratification. And this can bite us in the ass when we're investing, because we can start to invest from a mindset of save me, or I need instant results, or this is a bad investment, as opposed to understanding that results take time and I need to invest in something, understanding I'm going to show up for this investment and allow it to take the time it needs to give me those results. And otherwise, it's not that this was a bad investment. It's not that I can't trust myself to make investments, right? It's more that I have to trust myself to show up long enough for this investment to give me those results I want. Hey, Kate is showing me that you're live. It's nice to see you. So what I find happens so often when I'm talking with a client or when I'm talking with someone who feels like they can't trust themselves to invest, or feels like they've had a really bad experience in the past with an investment, a lot of times it's kind of what we're talking about here. A lot of times that program or product was actually good. And let's just say it was solving the right problem instead of what we were talking about before, where it's maybe not kind of solving the wrong next problem in the business. Sometimes it's simply a matter of, but are you trusting yourself enough to show up for that investment long enough to allow it to give you back the results you want? I'm shouting out my coach a lot today because we had her on the podcast recently. So I think many of you know Lacey Seitz. I've worked with her for 4.5 years, I think, at this point. I get wonderful results. She is an incredible coach. I think she's an epic. I really think she's a brilliant coach, and I get incredible results. But part of the reason I get incredible results, and part of the reason she's able to support me in a way that I think she's such a great coach. I mean, she is on her own, but in terms of our work together and our partnership, is because I keep showing up for that investment and I allow for results to take time. Our first 6 months together, I think I maybe booked one client, not because that wasn't a good investment, not because that wasn't the right investment, not because she's not an incredible coach, but simply because results take time, and the challenges I personally was investing in support around were mostly mindset, and those results, those shifts, those changes took some time. And imagine if I had said, oh, well, that's not a big enough ROI for me. This is a shitty investment. This is a stupid investment. I didn't get 6 figures in 6 months. There's something wrong with me. I can't trust myself. There's something wrong with this investment. That investment sucks. And I had stopped investing. I would have proven that to be true first and foremost, right? Because I wouldn't have the ROI that I do now, where we're making multiple 6 figures and we continue to scale 100K plus a year, right? I wouldn't be saying that. I would be saying, well, I invested all this money. I booked 1 client. This is stupid. And I can't trust myself to invest. How am I gonna, I thought that was a good investment. That solved the right, I'd have all of this narrative about how I can't trust myself and this investment was wrong or bad, instead of seeing, well, but also results take time. And again, not that they have to take a long time, but that's, I think, just one of the biggest truths I wanna be a voice for. And not to say we don't wanna hold both ourselves and whoever we're investing through, if it's a service provider or a product, hold that, both parties responsible. I always say any relationship, whether it's a marriage or a partnership in business or you with a product relationship, there is a 200% equation, right? You're 100% what you show up for, and then 100% your service provider shows up for in their role, right? We have to be clear on what our each individual's 100% is. So this isn't to say that we're now taking all the responsibility, just like we're not going to give all of the responsibility, right? That gets into weird codependency, I don't know, drama triangle stuff. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about each party having the responsibility for their roles, and within that, starting to understand so that you can trust yourself and give yourself the ability to get that big ROI from your investments. The results take time, and that's not a bad thing. I wanted to, run faster than I'm running right now, to run a marathon in 3 months or 6 months or however long that is, right? If I was going to train for a marathon, those results would take time. But if I was showing up for that training program, let's say I invested in a trainer in that training program, it wouldn't mean that I wasn't getting the ROI, or that I can't trust myself, or that I can't trust myself to invest, or that's a poor investment if on week 2 or even month 1, I haven't run those 26 miles yet, right? That means I'm probably making a great investment and I'm getting my ROI and I'm getting great results and I can trust myself. I just gotta keep showing up for that training to be able to run the 26 miles. So hopefully that makes sense. I know I'm a little soapboxy today, but I feel like there's so many people who are doing amazing things and amazing work in this world who are not trusting themselves, who really do deserve to trust themselves. So yes, results take time, and results also look different for everyone. I said this earlier, but this was the other piece of the truth here, is sometimes your ROI also looks different than what you expect, and that also doesn't mean you're not getting an ROI or that you've done something wrong. Again, and I want to keep prefacing, this does not mean that if you invest in a microwavable dinner and you open the container and it's empty and there's no food in there, that because you got a different return on your investment of no food, that is okay and we're gonna let that company off the hook, right? If you're expecting a microwavable meal, this is so funny because I do not eat microwavable meals, however, we're running with it. That does not mean if you get a microwavable meal and nothing is in that package, right? Or if you order something from Amazon and nothing shows up at your door, or you get an empty box, that we're saying, well, results take time and I have to take my personal responsibility and just wait a little bit. That's not what we're talking about. If this delivery isn't happening on the other side, that's where you get to have a conversation, have a boundary, have some question marks. And what we came into the beginning of this conversation with is assuming most people on the internet are coming from a place of integrity. Most people are delivering products and services. I'm assuming everyone here has a product and service that is coming from a place of integrity, that you're good at what you do, that you follow through with what you say you will, that you deliver what you say you will. We're looking at assuming that is true, assuming there is food in that microwavable dish, right? That here's how we can start to build our own self-trust to make those investments and get the most out of those investments. And then going with that same analogy, then that would mean if it takes 5 minutes to cook the food, after 30 seconds not opening the microwave and getting mad that your dinner's frozen, understanding, oh, that's just a part of the process. The best way I get my hot meal is to actually let this have the time it needs to cook. Okay, I think that all makes sense. But I think that's important just for the self-trust piece and just to give yourself some grace and permission piece of this, because I think this is also where I just think back to myself and the investment we were using myself as an example with coaching. It would have been so easy for me to make myself wrong, or to make that investment wrong, or to make that program wrong. And the truth is that was the best, like that is hands down the best investment I've ever made in my business. It continues to be. I got so much more than what I paid for, right? It just looked a little different on paper than what I expected. And I also knew those monetary results were on the way. But if I had made myself wrong and broken my trust, that would have been so unfortunate for really, I would have if I'd taken given my power away and kind of gone into a victim mentality around that would have just been so unfortunate. Really, I would have been the only person I'm harming, because I'm also the person who benefited from that. So I reflect that here because I think that can be the case. We can all do this to ourselves, and I want to empower everyone here again to keep taking your power back around this and just be able to see your investments through a slightly different lens. Okay, so last thing here, and then I'll close with the 4 questions you can ask yourself before making an investment. But the last piece here I wanted to dive into a little bit is, how do you get the most from your investment? So let's say you've gotten clear on the right problem to solve, you have found something that's a really great fit. How do you get the most out of any investment? Or even if it's not a great fit, how do you build that trust and get the most out of any investment? So this is going to sound so Captain Obvious, but I think it's worth speaking to, because this is a mindset I've always had. I've made some investments in my business that I'm trying to think of how to say this in a way where I'm not now doing what I was talking about at the beginning of the live stream. I don't think they were bad investments. I just don't think they were solving the right problem, or they weren't. I got inside programs where they weren't what I expected them to be. And I have gotten something out of every single thing I've ever invested in my business. But part of that is what we were talking about earlier. I have the mindset, and I have decided if I'm investing in something, I am getting an ROI. It might not look like what I've expected, kind of like that stock investment example, but I'm always going to make sure that I leverage my money, or I leverage my time, or I leverage my asset. So I believe that. And so I would say that's the first thing. If you want to get a big ROI, to go in with building that mindset and making that decision to build that trust, because that really lays the foundation for everything. We talk about this so much in this group. Your mindset is 90 to 95% of what drives all conscious action. What you decide is how you show up, what you believe, what you tell yourself is true. That is going to affect your actions and what you put into action. Because the second part for how you can tap into that self-trust, but how you can get the biggest ROI from any investment is really to cultivate a self-trust that you are going to show up for your investments. And this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning. I think it's so easy, unintentionally. I don't think anyone does this on purpose. I think every single person, we are all doing the best we know how with wherever we're at in our current situation, and our brain is always designed to try to keep us safe, try to keep us alive. We're always doing things that we think are in our own best interest. And I think unintentionally, it's very easy when you invest in your business to want to give your power away and to want to give away personal responsibility. And if you can practice taking that personal responsibility back, not the responsibility of the service provider and their role, but just your 100% of that 200% equation, and practice cultivating the trust that you're, from a place of personal responsibility, going to show up for your investment to get what you can from that, you will always get the best ROI. I don't know, I feel like I've made some gold out of some programs that, with all the love in the world, were never meant to give me gold. I just really believe if I'm investing time and energy in something, I am getting the most out of this. My time is super valuable and precious, and I really believe in respecting my money and investing it intentionally. So even if it's not what I expected, I am making sure that happens. And I think that can be the difference maker, which again, then really puts you back into your seat of self-trust and power. And again, we're not outsourcing or we're not taking someone else's responsibility for what they need to show up for. But this then really can help you feel safer with any investment. I see, I think with team, this is a really great example. I see this with clients a lot when we're talking about building their team, right? It can be so easy to almost get into this, I need someone to save me mentality when I invest in business. And an investment that didn't save me in the past was bad. But if I can just invest in something new, like it's going to save me in business. And I think with like, we can graduate and like keep having this pattern follow us at different stages of business and get to a place where it's like, well, if I just hire the right team member, they're going to solve everything. They're going to save me in business. And it's a good investment if they save me in business and they know how to do everything and they take care of everything, as opposed to coming back to the mentality we're talking about here, which is I trust myself to make good investments. I trust myself to show up for that investment. I trust myself to take back my power, that personal responsibility, show up for my 100% of this investment, which means it's not my team member, for example. It's not my team member's job to give me an ROI. It's not their job to save me. It's their job to show up for the problem I'm hiring them to help me solve, which is usually an implementation and giving back my time problem, not a direct, they're meant to, save my business and create results in my business problem. So hopefully that example makes sense. But I think this is the place where, this sounds so basic, but I think it's something we can forget so often in business because of often the marketing out there that is very well intended, I think sometimes can unintentionally take the power away and just say, well, if you invest in this is going to solve, like, we will come and save you. And I want to really encourage everyone here to keep taking your power back. No, not that no one's going to come to save you, but if you save yourself, so to say, you never have to worry about that. And then you can just really start to trust yourself to invest in the next best solution to the next problem you need to solve in your business. Ooh, I feel like always this ranty. I feel like I'm very ranty today, y'all. Okay, let me know if you have questions. I'm gonna close with sharing the four questions or 4 things you can go over before any investment to also help you make investments that are a better fit. Because I do think, kind of going back to that, solving the next right problem in your business, I do think fit is incredibly important. We talk about that a lot in this group when I'm having sales conversations with someone. That example of the person I spoke with this morning, right? I could have easily sold them a solution to a problem they have in their business, and I could have helped them with that problem, except for I don't believe that was in integrity. I think fit is also so important. I don't think I would have been the right fit for the current challenge, which for them I think was more hands, implementation, team. But I think, and so that's great. Like I think I'm in a place in business where I can see that's a little easier for me. And I think it's also our job on the potential client side to start to think, how can I also screen for fit? And that goes back to that, not just what's the next problem for me to solve, but also how can I really start to understand what is the right fit for me? How do I like to be supported? I think when we talk about, you don't always get the result or the ROI you expect. Sometimes it's an unintended ROI. I know one of the ROIs I got from one of the initial programs I invested in my business, which was a perfectly good program. Nothing wrong with the program, but I threw myself in it completely. And I also realized I do really well with one-on-one support. That doesn't mean that the other program was wrong or bad, or was like, I got exactly what I paid for, and more because I showed up for it. And one of the unintended ROIs I got, lessons, insights was, oh, for me, this is what's a really good fit. This is how I work best. This is how I thrive best. That might not be the same for someone else, but that's what's true for me. And I reflect that here because every investment you make, everything you do in business, the more you can start to get clear on what is a good fit for me? How am I best supported? How do I feel best held? How do I get the best results, right? As opposed to thinking everything is exactly the same. Some people do really well with, a course. Some people, I'm biased, y'all know that because I only do one-on-one, so I think one-on-one is the best solution always, but some people do really well with a course. Some people do really well in a group environment, right? All of these are correct. The more you can start to learn what's the right fit for you, even in terms of coaching style. Some people do really well with like a hard ass type of a coach. Some people do well with a really soft type of a coach, right? There's all different coaching styles, even if we're looking within something like if one-on-one is a fit. So I'd invite you to think, if I'm going to get the biggest ROI from my investment, I'm going to invest in my business. Not only what's the next right problem for me to solve, but how can I get clear on what's the best fit for me, and really start to screen investments through fit as well. If I use the stock market, I keep wanting to call it the stock exchange, the stock market as an example, right? Part of what I screen for fit there is what's my fit in terms of not only what do I believe in and want to invest in, what's going to be a fit for me to invest in long term, but also what's my investment style. Do I have, what's my capacity for risk tolerance? What's my capacity for, needing something that's more stable? Do I need to be able to pull money out tomorrow, or do I need to pull money out when I retire in however many, decades that might be, right? All of these are fit components, not just simply, is this the right, solution to a problem? And so I reflect that here, because I think the first question I would invite everyone when you're getting ready to make that next investment is to start to look at getting clear first and foremost on what is the next right problem for you to solve in your business, or if it's in your personal life, what is that? And really screening for solutions that actually match that challenge or problem or pain point. Excuse me, I need a sip of water. And starting to really screen with that for fit, and to get clear on what is a good fit for you. How do you like to be supported? Because when you can marry those two together, it almost doesn't matter the rest I'm going to share with you, that is what. And then you have your self-trust, and you're showing up with personal responsibility, and you can trust yourself to show up for that investment. It's kind of impossible for you not to get an epic ROI. When I look at my clients who are thriving, the ones who get the most from their investment, it's often because they're really clear that this is the right solution, right? This is the right next step for them in terms of what they need to solve in their business. And they're really clear that and my coaching style and the way I work is a good fit. I'm not a fit for everyone, right? There are people, the person I spoke to this morning, an amazing human. There are people I tell all the time, I'm like, I would love to go get a cocktail with you. You shouldn't hire me as your coach. We don't have coaching chemistry, as I like to call it, right? But they're really screening for those two things. And when they make an investment from that place, and they also trust themselves to show up for that investment and get what they need out of the coaching container, right? They know their results are inevitable. Belinda says, what is the next right question? Gold. Thank you. So play with that. 3 other things you can play with when you're getting ready to make an investment and you're kind of considering, should I do this? Should I not? Can I trust myself to make this investment? The second thing I always like to check in with, and this is something I'll sometimes battle test with people on a sales conversation. So this is something you can use if you're having a sales conversation on the service provider side, or something you can use on the I'm about to invest in something side. But it's to check in with, is it stretchy or is it stressy? So I think going back to kind of what we were talking about in terms of the fit piece, and also in terms of being able to trust yourself to show up for that investment fully, there's, I think, just certain components. If we're going to get the biggest ROI from something, I think sometimes in our online space, there's a little bit of noise that's just sort of wants to say throw money at a problem, and it doesn't matter how much. If you believe in yourself and you believe in your business, no amount is too big. You should throw money at that, and that's going to give you a result. And I mean, yes and no. I think that's a little bit nuanced. And what I find, at least in a coaching container, I find we really want to get clear on, is it stretchy or is it stressy? If it's stretchy in terms of, this is a stretchy investment, I feel stretch. That's an expansive feeling. In my opinion, that is when, if you are feeling stretched, right? If we are stretching our capacity, we are stretching outside our comfort zone, that is where growth happens. And understanding what is your capacity for stretchiness. And if you can hang out in that stretchiness, I would say that's a place where, if you trust yourself to show up, and the other pieces, right? This is the next right problem to solve in your business, and it's a fit. That's where I would say you can trust yourself to invest. If it feels stressy is different than stretchy. Stressy means I am super contracted. That means I am stressing all the time about this investment. It is such a big overhead, or it is such a big time commitment, or it is just freaking me the F out because I don't trust myself enough to show up for this investment. I don't trust the service provider enough. Whatever that trust piece is, right? There's a piece of trust, a core trust component we're missing on one side or the other. To me, that would say hit the brakes. If you want to get the biggest ROI, we're looking for stretchy, not stressy. I would hit the brakes when it's stressy and first look at how can I create some safety and how can I create some trust, whether that's with myself or with the service provider or the product or service, right? Get clear on what side of the fence that is, and maybe it's a little bit of both places. But I would say if that's where you're sitting with a possible investment, if you want to get the biggest ROI, that's a place where I wouldn't pressurize yourself to be like, no, but I'm just supposed to spend money because if I spend money, then I make money. If you're coming from a stressy place, I'd invite you to pause and wait until you can get into a stretchy place, right? So that's just a place of first get to safety, first get to some trust, personal trust with the offer, get into the stretchy place, because when you're in a stretchy place, that's what will help you get the bigger ROI. Stressy, we tend to, again, contract, collapse. That's often when I see people not showing up for their investment in the same way or kind of freaking out. That's not going to help you get the biggest ROI. Some people might disagree with me on that, but that's personally what I find. Most of us don't thrive in the stressy space, but stretchy I think is very different. I do think there's a, it's called eustress. There's a healthy kind of stress. If you I don't know, you can learn this when you study psychology, right? We talk about different kinds of stress and we think all stress is bad. I don't even think, this is just a psychological fact, not all stress is bad. There is good stress, there is bad stress. Stretchy is the good stress. It's the eustress. It's the stress that it allows you to expand. Stressy, contracted is where we'll hit the pause. The third thing to check in with, and it's kind of what we were talking about earlier in the live stream, if you want to get the biggest ROI from your investment, I would hit the pause button and check in with, are you coming from a place of save me or I'm going to show up for this? So we talked about this already, so I'll just be really brief on this, but really important place to check in with. What is my intention? Where am I coming from as I'm about to make this investment? If I am coming from a place of, I expect this to save me, this is a shiny object, I hope this is the miracle, I hope this is the cure, I hope this will give me instant results, I hope if I invest my time in this or I invest my money in this, all of my problems will be cured and solved tomorrow. Or if you're being promised that on the marketing and sales side, either way, if there is a save me element, I would personally suggest to run the fuck away from that, right? That is not where you want to make your investments from if you're looking for a big ROI. If I invest in the stock market from a save me mentality and just throw my money thinking this thing's going to make me a bunch of money tomorrow, I mean, maybe I'll get lucky once or twice, but that's really not how, from everything I've learned, right? I've now been investing in the stock market it's been a very long time since that initial first investment, right? That's really not the place I want to invest in the stock market from. That's really not how that works in terms of a investment vehicle that's going to help me get a big ROI year after year. If I'm coming from a place of, I know I'm going to show up for this investment and I trust the investment, whatever I'm investing in, is also going to show up to meet me and match me, that's a place I would say you can trust yourself to show up to get that ROI. So just check in, save me, or I'm going to show up. Where's the intention? Where's the energy coming from? If you're coming from a save me energy, you don't necessarily have to run away, but I would see where can I shift into the I'm going to show up for this mentality, mindset, energy instead. And again, I think this is all helpful for us from the selling side as well. I don't think anyone in this, I think of anything in this space, I know most of my clients, I have to nudge them to own their work a little bit more and to own what they're able to do and their expertise. But I think we can all just be mindful of where are we unintentionally trying to be saviors and imply that in our marketing and sales, because I think that's just really not going to create that equation, that even 100% on either side, that's going to allow, I think, for the biggest result, the biggest transformation, the biggest return on the other side. Okay, and then the last thing that I think is really helpful to check in with when you're making an investment, and this kind of goes back to that shiny object syndrome. It's a little different than the save me or show up for it question mark, but it's just to check in with, are you coming at this investment from a place of, I want this, or I think I'm supposed to do this, or I'm supposed to invest in this? Those are two very different things. And I think in our business space, there's a lot of things we think we're supposed to do. You know, I talk a lot about making your own rules, questioning the rules, breaking the rules, rewriting the rules. And this is one of those things. I think sometimes we think we're supposed to invest in something to be able to get a result, as opposed to, I want to invest in this, or this makes sense as an investment because it is solving that next right problem, that next right question mark for me and my business, and it's a really great fit. And I would really invite you to check in with that, even with one-on-one coaching. Look, I think one-on-one coaching, I think my coaching is phenomenal. I think that is a really great investment for a lot of people who want to work on the clarity, mindset, strategy, and action to build, grow, and scale their business. And you do not have to invest in a coach to be able to build, grow, and scale a profitable business, right? Like that, you are not supposed to have a coach to be able to make money in your business. It is a solution to a challenge if clarity, mindset, strategy, and action, right? If that's the challenge point, if that's the thing you want support with, if that feels good, if that feels like a fit, if it feels like you're going to show up for it, all the different things we were just talking about. But it is not a you are supposed to, and if you don't, you won't make money in your business kind of a thing. The same with, I don't think in this group we have this so much, but I know when I first started in the online space, I was literally told that I was kind of crazy for thinking organic marketing would work, and that I was supposed to invest in Facebook ads, and which is actually very, very funny to me to think about now, 6 years later, since we've never spent a dime in Facebook ads. But that was definitely a supposed to in the online space, at least at that time. And if I had invested in ads at that time, not only would that have all of the other check marks, right? Like it would have come from a not solving the right problem, like wouldn't have been the right fit. I would have already gone through my checklist here and it wouldn't have been the right thing. But if, let's just say, everything else had checked off, like, oh yes, maybe this makes sense. If I had asked myself, is this an I'm supposed to or an I want to? It would have been an I'm supposed to answer, not an I want to, not this feels great for me to invest in. So I just want to empower everyone here to take that as well, and just like to sit with that with any investment you're making. You don't, like, the beautiful thing about being a CEO in your business is you don't have to do shit you don't want to. You get to do what you want. You get to create the rules. You get to call the shots. And you get to take that on for yourself and make those decisions. And the more you trust yourself to do that, the more you come from want to instead of supposed to, the bigger ROI you're going to get, because then you're going to, all the other pieces we talked about are going to be completely different. If you want to invest, right? Even if it feels stretchy, but if you want to invest in something that feels stretchy and it's a great fit and it's solving the right next problem for you in your business, you're going to then be able to show up in a completely different place to get that ROI. If you feel like you're supposed to do something in business, outside of business, if you feel like you're supposed to do something in your personal relationships, in your dating, right? All that's going to do is create resentment. And most of us as entrepreneurs have a little bit of a rebellious streak. Whenever we feel like we're supposed to do something, even if it's not consciously, subconsciously, we just want to rebel the fuck against it. So I think this is just such an important thing to keep checking back with. And investments, again, does not just mean a monetary investment. This can also be a time investment. So check in with that as well. Where you're investing your time, you can use this same filter, these same question marks. Let's see. I have a ton of porn I'm starting to get rid of. Alejandro, you crack me up. Yes, I think all of us have a lot of business porn. We could start like a business porn website. The things that my husband's probably in the other room, like, what are you talking about? You're cursing, you're talking about business porn. Like, what the heck is going on in your live stream today? Okay, I'm going to quickly recap these, and then I'm going to lovingly let you all go because I have a client call coming up in 15 minutes. So I'm going to wrap this up. But as a recap here, we all, to get results in anywhere in our life, in our business, in our personal life, right? We have to invest some sort of resource. It's very much like playing those board games. We have to create an engine that works for us like a well-oiled machine. The better engine we build, the more resources we create. And we have to take those resources and invest them, time, energy, finances, brain space, right? We have to invest those resources. And when we invest resources, that's what generates results. And investments aren't created equal. And the more we can look at how can we start to take back our personal power? How can we start to take back our personal trust? How can we start to take back our personal responsibility with our investments? The more we're going to trust ourselves to build up those trust muscles, stack those trust muscles up so that you can show up and get a bigger ROI from any investment. I think what's really important here for everyone here is if you've ever made an investment that didn't feel good, to look at where do I need to maybe forgive myself and where do I need to see, even if I didn't get the return I thought I was going to, how can I mine that for gold to see I still got a return that can serve me? right? This is almost like a whole nother live stream topic, but I think it's sort of like I always think some of the most challenging circumstances in my life, like things that I wouldn't wish on anyone else, I also know when I look back have given me some of the biggest gifts and biggest lessons and biggest catalysts for growth. And so I would offer that to everyone here. If you've ever had an investment that maybe felt like it was wrong, and I say that in air quotes very intentionally, so that you're not making that investment wrong or yourself wrong, and again, can build that trust up again to see you always have that power to get what you need from something, even if it's not what you thought you were going to get from it. And with that, just a reminder for all of us, right? So much of investing is starting to get really clear on what's the next right problem to solve in your business or in your personal life, whatever that is. How can we start to invest from that mindset to solve that, but also from the marketing side, right? Speak to that, but that usually means most people are in integrity. Most programs are great. That doesn't mean a program is wrong or bad. It just means we get to be more in our own clarity, more in our own responsibility to get really clear on investing in what solves that next right problem. And then, like, already forgetting the recap. And then that last piece there in terms of how to get the most from any investment, even that investment where you invest in something, you're like, what the heck is this? And I have invested in programs where I have been like, it almost felt like the empty microwave dish, right? And not to throw shade, but I think we've all been there, is to remember the more you can trust yourself to show up for your 100% of that equation. If we have a 100% and 100%, and the more you show up from a place of, I'm not expecting anyone to save me, and I know results take time, all results take time, and that is okay. And I am going to show up for this and get mine. The more you have that mentality and decide, I always get something out of every investment I make, the more you're going to get a larger ROI. That is something every single one of us can take our power back around. Kate says, thanks, Kim. Great info as always. Thanks for being here, and thank you for commenting. And again, a reminder for everyone, comment, leave a heart, leave an emoji, say whatever you want, leave a GIF. We will pick on Thursday a winner. We're giving away 1 copy of my 6-week sales course, Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout. And then last reminder, we have that 5-day podcast series, the Too Much series. Make too much noise, impact, and money on your terms. I will drop a link for that. Get instant access to it and the playbook and workbook with journaling prompts for you. And I think that is all the things. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Is it Oksana? She said we'll have to look back at what I missed in the first bit. Absolutely, and if you have any questions, feel free to throw them at me. Y'all, I love you so much. Thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for chiming in now and on the replay with questions. I know I was very much on my Kim's personal little soapbox today, but this feels so important because I want all of you to feel so great and in your power and in your trust and really feeling like you can continue to show up in your business and for those investments and get what you need out of them in a way that has you feel really whole. And I think that is something that is only going to serve all of you. So thank you for hanging with me, and I will be back next week with another live stream for y'all. Bye.